It is not currently on the agenda. Would like to hear it now. Seeing no one in the audience, as part of the pre-agenda, we would like to address a new policy by the DEP, which is allowing conservation commissions to vote open hearings and vote contingent on the issuance of a DEP number. We have 2 hearings tonight that do not have DEP numbers, but the delay of their hearing would cause an arduous delay for the home property owner. So what I would like to do, if there's any discussion between the commissioners, take a roll call, discuss, and then take a roll call vote on whether or not we approve a new practice of opening hearings and issuing a decision contingent upon receipt of a DEP number.
Can we just do a point of order? I think we missed the Pledge of Allegiance.
Brian, thank you very much. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This commission desperately needs a chairman who doesn't forget that. Back to the DEP issue. Is there any discussion amongst the commissioners?
So we can open the hearing, we can listen to everything. And then we continue it.
You can, you would have, it would be your discretion as to whether you would wish to continue, based on other factors aside from the DEP number, or you can close the hearing but not issue the actual, state that you're issuing the order conditions, or you could make a motion to issue pending receipt of a DEP number.
Okay, so we can close the hearing as well.
Close the hearing, but always with the statement that issuance pending receipt of a DEP number.
Okay.
That is required before you issue any permit under
Right.
notice of intent.
Right.
Not just notice of intent, rather, not.
I personally feel like it's a good way to keep the ball moving forward, whereas we'll do this for our own internal departments and town staff that have a say in each of these things, such as the harbor master, the shellfish constable, the board of health. We extend that same practice there, and if DEP is willing to let the ball keep rolling until they issue the number, seems like an efficient thing to me.
One question I would have, when the DEP number is assigned, they usually comment on the project. What if their comments mandated us to come back and revisit an order of conditions that we've already signed?
Right. So you could, in that instance, recall the application back before the commission for additional, discussion and
Okay.
commissioning based on that.
All
So
right.
the opportunity, bottom line is the opportunity is not lost by accepting this procedure. You can always call them back in to go over additional conditions based on the comments, like you said, that are associated with DEP.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Do we make that a standard thing that we announce, or at least make it a standard policy that we publish in the paper or notice that if DEP comments affect, bring new information to light or something that the commission must review, then there's a likelihood that the applicant will need to come back?
Raul, did you have a comment?
Yes, just for the record, Raul Isali from Cape and Islands. On this topic, there's other towns that actually do this practice. And in fact, I just had a hearing on Tuesday in the town of Barnstable for the Conservation Commission. So what they did do in Barnstable is they do continue the hearing to a specific date to allow time for the DEP file number to be issued. And in that continued date, the applicant or the applicant representative doesn't have to come to the hearing unless there are comments that would merit additional discussion. So in Barnstable, all the ones that I presented that didn't have a DEP number assigned have been continued in those particular projects that I've represented, I haven't had to go back because of comments, but then at the continued hearing, the board closes it and subsequently they issue the order of conditions.
Thank you, Raul.
Yeah, it's helpful.
So it's kept open.
Yeah.
How do we feel about that?
I like the idea of keeping it open myself.
Brian?
Yeah, fine with that.
I like that too. How about out there in cyberspace, our online commissioners? Any comments?
Steve or Charlie, do you have any comments on this proposal?
So, okay, so the question is whether we just keep it open and then issue the order of conditions once we receive the DEP number? Is that correct?
Correct. And what Raul had just stated is in the town of Barnstable, they continue the hearing in the absence of a DEP number. And if it comes in and there's no additional conditions listed along with the DEP number, which can happen sometimes, that there's no need to recall the applicant back to the meeting unless there are additional conditions and the commission feels it's warranted to call them back to a hearing. In the absence of that, the commission can just go ahead and issue once the DEP number is received without calling the applicant back to the meeting. That's only in the absence of additional conditions from DEP.
Right, yeah, I agree with that. That sounds reasonable.
Alex, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I agree with that. I think that's the way to proceed, so. And then if there are additional conditions, then we call the applicant back in.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay.
Alex, any comments on that?
No, I'm okay with it.
Charlie?
Charlie?
That's fine, no problem.
Aaron?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote for the commissioners on the subject of just discussed of issuing opening hearings that lack a DEP number and continuing them until they have them. And in the event no extra debate is required and comments do not change the fact, we will simply issue and not call the applicant back. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. Voting, Brian,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. I think we should move straight to the first hearing, if that's all right.
Yes.
Sounds
One
like-
moment. One of the participants is having trouble with audio, so just give me a moment.
No problem. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you.
I know this is a little out of order, but is there any chance that we could do the pre-hearing agenda, pre-post hearing agenda item of the positions first?
Yeah, we can do that. We can get out of the way the vote first. It has been delayed for 5 weeks. So the question was to proceed with our delayed voting for the positions of officers within the commission. Present, Mr. Colombo has expressed interest in the chairmanship. Mr. Whedon was not here our last meeting, so if he has an interest in any of the positions, which would be chairman, vice chairman, or secretary, feel free to voice up, as well as any of the individuals and sitting commissioners who are online.
So because I missed the last meeting, I guess, was there like a formal nomination process or was it like individual nominations?
Individuals had expressed interest.
Okay. I mean, I'm willing to help out the commission as needed. not so much trying to be active. The chairperson's really active. The vice chair kind of steps in when the chair is not there, or secretary, even though we do have someone that takes the meeting minutes. So I'm not sure what that job really entails, but I'm willing to step up and help out in any area if needed. And I don't mind opening up nominations or working our way down from chair to vice chair to secretary or vice versa.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Colombo, if you would like to say anything, we'll start from the top down on the votes, and starting with chairman.
As I mentioned at our last meeting, I would certainly be willing to step into the chair. I've had experience chairing commissions before in the town of Clinton, and I was the vice chair in the city of Leominster. So I know the process, I know the regulations. After being now in Mashpee for close to 6 years, I feel as though I pretty much know the town, maybe not as good as a lot of you people do, but I think I can find my way around. So I'd be happy to step forward.
Thank you. Is there discussion from our other committee members? Hearing none, I would motion that we nominate Paul Colombo as the next chairman of Conservation.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any discussion? Now voting. Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Right. Go ahead.
There was just a quick point in that Tom O'Neill had expressed in the last meeting, and he's not here tonight, that he was also interested in the chair position, so I think it's prudent to ask for a motion for a vote for Tom O'Neill's consideration, because he's not here, so, and he did express an interest to become chair, so I think it's just good, necessary to put that out for a motion and do a vote as well, since he did put his hat in the ring. So.
Sounds good. And if, let's start with that. Is there a motion to nominate our vice chairman, Mr. Tom O'Neill, as chairman of Conservation?
If there's no motion, then there's no need to.
Hearing none, I will motion that we we nominate Mr. Tom O'Neill to continue as our vice chairman in his absence. And if he chooses not to accept the position, that's his prerogative.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Whedon. Is there any discussion? Now voting. Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Charlie?
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Next.
Oh, sorry. So there are still two other positions that are open for redesignation, and that's vice chair and secretary. So I don't know if you want to ask for additional discussion on that. I know Tom O'Neill is the sitting vice chair, so we may want to table this for a meeting when he attends to take a vote on that. It's a little unusual because he's not here, and he's the sitting vice chair, so I don't know if it's prudent to.
I figured we took the vote for his chairmanship. When in absentia, it was appropriate, I thought, to maintain put forward the vice chairmanship. And if that's not what he wants, he's free to decline.
That's fine.
Which leaves the position of secretary, which Mr. Whedon has expressed helping us in any way he could. So if that's something you're interested in, and if there's anyone else on the line who is interested in such things, please speak now. Hearing no one, I would like to motion that we nominate Mr. Brian Whedon, the Secretary of the Conservation Commission.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Now voting. Brian.
Abstain.
Paul.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie. I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you all.
All right, now calling the 6 o'clock hearing for Warren Q. and Kim R. Fields, 25 Taffrail Way, proposed repair to existing seawall. Representative is Cape Islands Engineering. This is an NOI.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape Islands Engineering, representing the applicant and homeowners of the property, the Fields family. The project in this notice of intent application has two main activities proposed. One is modifications to the existing floating pier, but also the proposal to eradicate the Phragmites on the property. There are several resources, wetland resources on the property. There's land under the ocean, which is Papanessa Creek, land containing shellfish, the same body of water. There's a salt marsh. There's a BVW. There's, or bordering vegetated wetland. There's a coastal bank in the form of a bulkhead, man-made structure. And there's land subject to coastal storm flowage, which encompasses the entire property. The property has approximately 2,800 square feet of land that is currently infested with Phragmites. In 2014, an order of condition was issued for managing and removal of the Phragmites. Some of those steps were taken. However, the Phragmites, as we all know, comes back. So we're asking for another permit or another permit to continue performing this removal of Phragmites. What the homeowner wants to do this time is to get a permit in perpetuity to continue the removal of these Phragmites. The homeowner has engaged with a landscaper who has a herbicide application license. And this time, instead of removal of the Phragmites by just cutting the plant, there's going to be a treatment using a herbicide, an approved herbicide for these applications. I believe a protocol or a procedure from that company has been submitted to the Conservation Department. The project for the proposed pier modification, what the homeowner is having is that the existing float, it's in a water depth of about half a foot to a foot of water. So at every low tide, the float itself bottoms out. What we are proposing to do to reach deeper water is remove the existing ramp, which is a 16-foot ramp, and replace it with a 26-foot ramp. Also replacing the existing 8x24 float with an L-shaped 2 float. The L-shape both floats will be 5 foot wide. The first section is 14 feet. The second section is 26 feet. That allows us to reach waters of 2.5 and 3 foot of depth for proper docking of the boats that the homeowner has. In terms of square footage, the existing float is approximately 192 square feet. The proposed two combined floats add up to 200 square feet, which is the maximum based on the new conservation regulations for dock projects. So it's approximately 8 square feet of additional square footage in terms of float, and it's approximately 14 feet that 16 feet that the float is extending further into the creek. However, there's still more than 100 feet between the end of this float and the end of the floats on the opposite side of the creek. So we sent this out to the harbor master, and there is no conflicts with navigation at this location. We did send out for comments for shellfish, but we haven't received anything back from the shellfish constable. But if the board seems appropriate and the homeowner already expressed that he's willing to offer any mitigation in terms of shellfish that the shellfish constable suggests, we could close this hearing if there's no other main concerns on the project, pending on recommendations from the shellfish constable. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Raul. Drew, comments?
So just to go over some images of the site. Here, this is a subject property here, 25 Taffrail at the end at the cul-de-sac. Papaneset Creek, you can clearly see that pretty well separated from any other docks on the same side of the creek. And then this is one of the wider portions of the creek, so no navigation issues from any points surrounding the subject property. Just a few images to show. Top left here showing the property from the road. This is on the right side of the property, the top right image, and you can see the Phragmites coming up here. So it's pretty prolific along the sides, along this side of the home, and then out by the water side as well. There's Phragmites in the upper salt marsh here. You can see right here in the lower left image and lower right, again, a band of Phragmites right here in the upper salt marsh. So those are the areas that will be treated, and certainly we encourage that. Any eradication, any efforts to eradicate invasive species like Phragmites, which is present in a lot of properties in this particular area, is always encouraged. And comments. So the harbor master has signed off. We haven't heard from the shellfish constable. I would anticipate he probably would calculate out a shellfish mitigation fee. And if the commission is comfortable in completing their review of the application, you can make a motion to, if you were to accept the project, to close an issue pending comments from the shellfish constable. And as Raul said, the homeowner is willing to oblige those comments when they come in, if it meets a shellfish mitigation fee. Division of Marine Fisheries recommendations, pretty standard for dock and pier projects. The separation at mean low water from the bottom of the float to the bottom of the substrate meets their criterion, which is, I believe, 2.5 feet, so it's greater than that. And if any, and this would be a condition in the order if you were to approve, any use of a barge for this work should occur at high tide to avoid grounding. Raul had already mentioned that the previous order for Phragmites expired and they wish to continue that with herbicidal treatment, which I think is the right way to go. Really want to eradicate it. And no other comments. I recommend a close and issue.
Thank you, Drew. Questions and comments from our commissioners?
I have a question.
Okay.
Start with Alex, then we'll move to Steve.
Great, thank you. So as far as I know, we've never issued a permit in like perpetuity, have we, Drew?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
They were asked-
for projects such as vista pruning, beach nourishment, and also for invasive species. And for Phragmites, it may not be in perpetuity as in forever, but at least extended as necessary to ensure the complete eradication. I mean, more often than not, it's a 3-year endeavor, which coincides with the length of that the order of condition is valid for. But there may need to be an extension just depending on how effective treatment is. So I wouldn't say perpetuity as in forever, but we can word a condition to reflect, extensions could be granted as necessary to ensure successful eradication or something along those lines.
Okay, I think I heard Raul say that that's what they were looking for, was for to be granted a permission in perpetuity for the Phragmites, which I don't really have a problem with. But is there any sort of like reporting to us on that? Like, would we get like an update as to like how much it's on or anything like that?
Yes, so I typically put into order conditions when it comes to invasive species a requirement of reports and updates after each treatment, recommendations, photographs, those sorts of things. So that would be built into the order of conditions.
Yeah, Alex, and
Okay,
if I
great.
can also add, so this site has another order condition, which was from the 2014 eradicating the Phragmites, but also replanting the area after the Phragmites is taken out with native species. So the Phragmites is so aggressive that the native species cannot be planted until this Phragmites is really in check. Now, both the borders to the north and the south also have Phragmites, and the Phragmites will continue to creep into this property. So that's why the homeowner wants in perpetuity, because it's unavoidable unless everybody in this neighborhood gets rid of the Phragmites. The two sides on this property will continue to have Phragmites creeping in. But if it's on the side, he will be able to maintain the I believe it's 80% eradication within his property, and then anything that's creeping over to the sides of the property, they can access that without having to interfere with the planting of the new mitigation plants.
Yeah. No, that sounds good.
Steve, I believe you had a question?
Yeah, I do. One of my concerns is the distance from the proposed float over to the float to the west. According to the plan, it has a boat on it. It shows 101 feet from float to float, but they didn't take into effect the width of the boats that are on that float. You know, both boats are 8 feet wide. It's down to 85 feet between boats. And I just wonder, how does that match up with other floats and docks that are opposite each other on the creek? Because 85 feet, you know, could get tight, you know, especially at low tide when everybody's trying to go up the middle. And I can see the water depths are, you know, go from 3.5 to 4.5 feet there at mean low tide. So.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is that Harbor Master, based on his comments, is not concerned with navigational impacts from what's being proposed. That's not to say that it couldn't be an issue moving forward, and they still have to, I believe, pursue Chapter 91 for this modification. So there is another level of review that can look at that with a closer eye and get more information, you know, about potential navigation impacts.
Okay.
Yeah, and also
Yeah, that was my only question there.
something more to that.
Thank
So
you.
this area of the creek is not really that narrow. Well, relatively to the same creek. The narrowest part of the creek is further south. Even if you were to consider a beam of a boat that's 10 foot on either side of this two floats, you still have an 80-foot channel. This creek has a section on the channel further south that is much narrower than that. And yeah, the harbor master understood that this is just a dimension of 101 feet between the closest float to the proposed float, not accounting for the docking of the boats. And he had no problems with this portion of the channel.
Okay.
Since this is coincidentally my background, I would honestly give my opinion that I have no worries about this being a hazard to navigation or restricting navigable waters. Other questions? Comments or questions from our, oh, I'm sorry, Paul, please go ahead.
Can we go back to the Phragmites for a minute? Do we know who's going to be doing the treatment?
Crawford Land Management?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they've got
We've worked with them in the past.
significant experience, and
Okay.
this is
I
almost
I didn't see anything
I
in
didn't,
this.
yeah, I didn't either, but I did speak to the homeowner during the site visit, and he had told me it was Crawford that has been engaged for, and they've certainly had a broad experience in this area of invasive removal, so.
And they would contract that individual to keep going if need be?
I would imagine. I mean, there's no guarantees there, obviously, but
Right.
given their track record, I don't see him going with anyone else.
Okay.
You know, they've been very successful in every application they've done for invasive removal, so.
Okay.
Are there any questions from our audience? Has anyone called in?
He seems to have called in. Anybody online who has any comments on this application?
Hearing
I have
none?
nothing, thank you.
Okay.
Hearing none, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion. This is an NOI.
Just a reminder in the motion that close and issue pending receipt of shellfish constable comments.
Just waiting for Charlie. No?
I motion to close an issue for Warren Q. and Kim R. Fields at 25 Taffrail Way with the pending shellfish constable comments as a condition.
Thank you, Brian. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Jeez.
I'll be eating the punch.
Yeah, just by a nose. Thank you, Paul. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote. Brian?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now calling to order the 6:03 hearing, Francis Gloria Muir, Life Estate, 31 Wilson's Grove, proposed septic system upgrade. Representative, Shea Environmental Services, this is an NOI.
Hi, I'm Carmen Shea from Shea Environmental Services. We basically went through this with an RDA, so I think everyone's a bit familiar with the project already. And so basically, we are looking to repair a septic system that failed, not because of not being functional, but because it did not meet the 4-foot separation of groundwater in a Title V inspection relative to the Board of Health regulation, their bylaw. So we've proposed a raise system, which I think we've gone over before, where we have a 1,500-gallon tank with 500-gallon pump chamber combo, and that's going up to a single 500-gallon chamber with a separation of, basically, we're going to be 4 feet above adjusted groundwater, and the adjustment for groundwater, I believe, is 1.6 feet. So the Board of Health did grant us a 1-foot variance off of that adjustment, so we still have more than 5 feet separation, which I'm not sure if we clarified last time, because that's off of adjusted, not observed. So we do have a very tight lot here. We don't have a lot of room to play with. I think we've done the best we can for a 2-bedroom house, and we're asking for is we're in an A10 flood zone, and we're 96.5 feet from the coastal bank.
Thank you. Drew, comments?
Just to review some images of the site, here you can see the GIS location. So it's in the outer portion of the buffer zone to the top of coastal bank in this general area here. It is within the AE flood zone. Just some images of the lot. The lot is entirely pre-developed. There is no remaining vegetation, native vegetation, as is the case in a lot of areas here in the Pompanesett Village area. As Carmen had mentioned, it's a very tight lot, as you can see here in the upper left image. And here in the right side image, this is where all the bulk of the work is taking place. Board of Health comments, septic design plan submitted and approved by Board of Health. Some of the things that we can condition is just proper erosion control to prevent any runoff, if there's any sort of fill piled up or things along that nature. And then when it comes to stabilizing the site, if there's lawn, we can implement lawn standards to make sure that the lawn seed variety meets the standards under our bylaw. No other comments.
Questions and comments from our commissioners?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Steve, go ahead.
Looking at the plan, one of the questions I have is, it shows the new retaining wall for the SAS up against the house, and looking at the photographs, I don't know how practical that will be to construct or work, because you're placing a retaining wall right up against a shingled wall of a house. So there's no access to that shingle wall for maintenance or to walk around that side of the house. So I don't know, on a construction standpoint, I don't know how that's going to work.
Well, we could flash it and essentially make it so that it's not really in need of maintenance against that part of the wall there. Essentially, we're right up against the wall, no pun intended, with the amount of space we need just to comply with, essentially the Board of Health regulations, and that's what a whole lot of variances that we've listed on the plan, if you look at it already. I think that we could make some modifications so that, there isn't an issue with it being, so the shingles rotting. Well, they'd probably have to be peeled away and flashed, or put a rubber liner on that side of the retaining wall as well. There is one on the interior of the wall for purposes of breakout of effluent, should down the road there be any failure issue, which hopefully would be a long, long time down the road. But we could do the same thing against that part of the structure itself. The wall is going to be self-supporting. It's only less than 2 feet tall. So we're not talking, there's a bit of a raised area compared to the rest of the site. So this is the highest point of the property as well.
Any follow-up, Steve?
It just, it doesn't show on your plan. You don't have a cross-section showing through that. You just have a cross-sectional wall, so it's missing that detail. It's great where your cross-section shows the bottom elevation, top elevation, probably out where the area where the tank is, but it didn't show it up against the house. So, I don't know whether that needs to be called out or, to avoid any future issues or construction issues if it fails or causes any other problems in this area. That was my concern there.
Well, I don't think we'll have a failure of the wall itself or the septic system, which is, I think, I know the house is certainly a concern, and the homeowner is going to want to preserve that as well, and we'll certainly bring that up as an issue that, we can resolve as part of the construction as we go here. But relative to the conservation issues, I think that the wall is sufficient and does its job to, pretty much protect public health and the environment, which is our goal.
Other questions and comments from our commissioners? Is there anyone in the audience who's come to make public comment on this hearing? Anybody floating around online?
Anyone on the Zoom meeting that has any comments on this? Doesn't appear so.
All right. I motion that we close an issue. The 603 hearing, Francis Gloria Muir, Life Estate, 31 Wilson's Grove, as a proposed septic system upgrade. Do I hear a
I'll
second?
second that.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any further discussion? Voting, Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
No.
Alex.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Two. Now calling the 606 hearing, David M. and Anna S. Ferris, 36 Secaucet Point Road. Proposed expansion, modification of pier, ramp, and float. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is an NOI.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Isardi from Cape and Islands Engineering. I'm just covering up for Mark Dibbs from our office. This project, the last couple of times that it's been continued, it's due to waiting response from the Shellfish Constable. I believe the Shellfish Constable issued their recommendations, and the applicant is willing to accept the mitigation that was recommended by the Shellfish Constable. So that's what we were waiting for to close this hearing. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Drew, comments?
So just to review some images of the site, this is what you should be familiar with, 36 Secaucet Point Road bordering Little River. And you have resource areas of land under ocean and land containing shellfish. So myself and the harbor master and Shellfish Constable met with the homeowner and Cape and Islands out at the site to review the original application, which included dredging and a large modification of the existing float. So those two aspects have been removed from the original application, and the project scope has been reduced somewhat to keep the float system in line with our current regulations, and some of the adjacent floats on this side of the island. Just to refresh the commissioner's memory on the reasoning, the shellfish constable, the concerns he had over dredging was the presence of an invasive sponge. Water depths also appear to be pretty accurate. I mean, not accurate, suitable for as existing conditions that mean low water. There isn't a water depth problem for the existing conditions. The dredging was a concern from the shellfish constable because of the concerns over this invasive sponge and the chance of spreading it beyond its current range and getting into other areas of Little River and Hamlin Pond. So those were removed from the application. The shellfish constable revised his comments to approve the current iteration and also recommends a shellfish mitigation fee in the amount of $1,650 based on the proposed new structure within land containing shellfish. Harbor Master has no issues with, from a navigational standpoint. It's always kind of a tough navigational situation in Little River. It's docks and piers up and down, so but this, in the Harbor Master's opinion, didn't seem unreasonable. So the navigation is pretty tight in this area, no matter where you go. So no other comments there, and I recommend a close an issue with the condition of shellfish mitigation fee.
Thank you, Drew. Questions and comments from our commissioners? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this hearing? In that case, if there's no further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to close an issue with condition of a mitigation fee of $1,650.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Voting, Brian,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Alex,
No.
Steve,
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you,
you.
Raul. Now calling the 609 hearing. Joshua T. Delman, 257 Monomoskoye Road. Proposed septic system upgrade, relocation of sheds and mitigation plantings. Representative is Holmes and McGrath. This is an NOI. Is there anyone online to represent?
Raul, do you know who was supposed to come in to represent this one?
Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering.
Sorry, DEP number. That's,
Oh, we need to continue this.
continue, yeah.
Okay.
That's the reason.
That's the
Sorry.
reason? Okay.
Do we have a time and date for the next hearing for this, after continuance?
July 14, 6:06.
We'll entertain a motion to continuance to July 14th at 6:06.
Motion to continue to July 14th. It's 6:06.
Thank you, Charlie. Do I hear a second? All right, very good. Thank you, Brian. Now voting, Brian,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Alex,
Yeah.
Steve,
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you. Now calling the 612 hearing, Stephen and Catherine Marshak, Mashpee Treehouse, LLC, 51 Timberlane Drive, proposed renovation in addition to existing dwelling. Representative is Falmouth Engineering Incorporated. This is an NOI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. The applicant owns the property at number 51 Timber Lane. This is a single-family lot with a single-family dwelling and associated typical appurtenances, landscaping, driveway, lawn areas, and it's served by a septic system. There is also frontage on Santuit Pond with a licensed and permitted pier, ramp, and float. This commission back in the mid-2000s issued an order of conditions for the ramp and float. The resource areas in question include land under a water body and then a local and DEP inland bank, which have different definitions, as you know. So the proposed work is an addition to the right side of the house, or I guess it would be the south side, north being straight up. And the purpose of the addition is to allow the applicant to retire and have first floor living with a bedroom on the first floor. There is a second floor that would have guest bedrooms. There's also finished space and a walkout level basement. The interior is proposed to be renovated so that even with the new first floor bedroom, there'll be no net increase in bedrooms. The current permitted number of bedrooms and existing bedrooms in the house and the septic system permit are for 3 bedrooms. After the renovation, there'll continue to be 3 bedrooms. We've had some extensive conversations with Glenn Harrington about this project. This, you probably know, this area of Mashpee is earmarked for sewer in the not too distant future. So there's, in Glenn's opinion, there's no need to upgrade the septic system because it would be a short-lived septic system, given that sewer is in the future and there's no increase in bedrooms. This is a buffer project. There's redevelopment being done. The area on this south side of the house has been altered and redeveloped. There's a shed already on the property. There's been some paths, retaining walls, because it's a sloping lot. And so the addition that's proposed where that chimney is basically in a place that is sort of just the side yard of the property. There's a lot of bark mulch and things like that. And it does add impervious surfaces. As part of our application, we recognize that it would be difficult to provide the requisite ratios that you would generally require for impervious surfaces mainly because of the distance from the town-defined inland bank. There are some significant areas on the ground to do mitigation in the understory. We're more than willing to plant anywhere possible between the house and addition and the top of inland bank. The inland bank is in a heavily wooded condition. It's basically woodland from the top of the bank down to the pond, except for the access to the dock. There are some areas on the plan that are identified as vegetated. Right there, that is landscape area, the ground covers, so it's not naturally vegetated. So between that area and the area in the understory to the south of the path, right there, are available, and we had put notes in, identified in the narrative that we'd like to work with staff to plant whatever native plantings are appropriate and commensurate with the addition that we're proposing. I think that sums up my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Drew, comments?
So just to show some images of the site, it is pretty steep. It's inland bank, the resource areas, buffer zone to top of inland bank. And you haven't been out to the site. It is a very well vegetated inland bank. There's no erosion. concerns on this bank. I don't even think they've been any disagreements for maintenance around the existing stairway, which is shown on the plan here. This is the access to the dock. So in this area of the bank is very well vegetated. But in talking with Mike, there are some opportunities. We'll go back to the photos here. Bottom right, bottom left here is where the proposed addition is. As you can see, it's already previously landscaped. I believe this tree here, this oak, is proposed to be removed, as shown on the plan.
Yes.
And then just behind me in this bottom left photo is the bottom right. So there is opportunity to do some mitigation. As Mike had said, using the calculation formulas, it's calculating out a square footage that the property simply doesn't have space for. So what we discussed was coming up with a plan to use the available space for mitigation. It's mostly shady, so we'll have to look at shade-tolerant variety of native species and come up with a mitigation plan, which I put in my recommendations as a condition of approval. So I mentioned the top of the inland bank. Buffer zone to that is the resource area. No increase in living space. Existing septic is designed for 3 bedrooms. Applicant requesting the waiver of standards for development within the 50-foot buffer to top of inland bank. I believe that just given the minor scope of this project and the opportunity for mitigation, it meets the waiver. I think it meets the waiver request. And we can work with the consultant and homeowner to come up with a suitable mitigation plan and implement that plan, which I would also recommend a 2-year monitoring and maintenance once the plan is finalized. No part of this project will impact the inland bank itself, but the removal, it's actually 2. You've got 2 oak trees that are removed. May require some additional mitigation above and beyond, what we would work out for the home addition.
Understood.
Try to fill in those areas that are just basically bark mulch now.
Yep.
You mentioned the existing shed is proposed to be removed. It's not going to be relocated, it's just going to be flat out removed. Is that correct?
If it were relocated, it would likely be outside jurisdiction.
Okay.
If it were in jurisdiction, I'd come back for an amendment.
Okay. Sounds good. So I do recommend to close an issue with the condition of mitigation to replace ornamental plantings within the buffer zone to top of inland bank and occupy other areas available, and a 2-year monitoring and maintenance requirement to go along with that mitigation. That's those conditions.
Thank you, Drew. Comments and questions from our commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, the septic system, Glenn Harrington looked at that? Did he inspect that, or was there someone that inspected the system?
The system was inspected as part of the, I think, evaluation for areas to be sewered in Mashpee. There were inspections done, and it does not pass Title V standards, and that's public information. The health department's aware of it. The system was installed in 1969, and it was permitted for 3 bedrooms. There's no mandate by the Board of Health to upgrade it because in the very near future, they will be connected to sewer, and there's no increase in bedrooms. So that was his opinion.
Okay.
We may need to get something in writing from him, because his comments, which were submitted today, he said septic inspection required for change of footprint, septic tank must be accessible for maintenance and inspection, floor plans not included with submittal, dwelling limited to 3 bedrooms. That was this afternoon, so.
I'm surprised he doesn't know about the inspection because it was performed by, I believe, through a town evaluation. They were inspecting all of the systems along the pond, so.
300 feet.
Yeah, I mean, you probably know more about it than I do. It was I don't want to say voluntary, but it was part of the evaluation to get a sense of the condition of the septic systems in and around the pond. And I think it's true, I'm not misspeaking to say this is earmarked for sewer in the near future, right?
It is. It is part of phase 2.
Right.
Which got revamped to include this
Yes.
area of town. I still think it would be prudent to get something in writing from Glenn to update his comments from today.
Absolutely.
just to make sure that, that still holds true.
Sure.
Not dismissing the conversation that took place prior
Yeah.
when it came to sewering, but we just want to get most up-to-date,
Sure.
up-to-date feedback on it.
Sure.
And if acceptable to the commission, you could have that as a condition, or if you want to continue it in light of, receipt of documentation that this has been reviewed by Board of Health.
How do you feel about that, Paul? Continuance or condition?
I think it's a pretty big issue. I would rather see a continuance.
Other questions and comments from our commissioners on the subject of continuance or any other questions about this hearing?
I just want to say it's hard to hear if other people on the line aren't muted, because if anybody moves, it kind of takes over the microphone. So if anybody who's not, can you guys just mute when you're not speaking and then unmute to vote, because otherwise it's hard to hear.
I sympathize. Running the meetings during COVID was a good time. All right, any other questions or comments on this hearing? And we are discussing whether or not to continue or condition.
If it helps your decision-making process, I would be happy to continue the hearing. I'm here on the 14th of July, and I know my client is not planning to do anything construction-related during the summer. It would be after Labor Day. So if it makes your decision easier to continue, we're happy to do that.
Do we have a date and a time for the potential continuance?
July 14th, 6:15.
I motion that we continue the hearing for Stephen and Catherine Marshak at Mashpee Treehouse LLC, 51 Timberlane Drive, to July 14th at 6:15. If there's no further discussion, we'll entertain a second.
Discussion?
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure there's no other outstanding issues other than that one, so that I can cover them before, I don't want to come back on the 14th and find out there may be another issue.
Absolutely, that would be unfair. Speak now, everyone, or forever hold your peace. Do you have are there any other issues or questions with this hearing? Is anyone in the audience or on the phone looking to make commentary?
No phone, and don't see any comments from online.
Very well. How about that second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Whedon. Now voting. Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
This one and the next one, one more language online.
Thank you. I'm now calling the 6:15 hearing for Joseph J. and Kathleen C. Coolio, 65 Redwood Circle, proposed construction of 3 additions to existing dwelling and permitting of existing elevated walkway. Representative is Wet Tech Land Design Incorporated. This is an NOI.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I can hear you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for hearing this meeting. I'm representing Joseph and Catherine Ciolo. And do you want me to?
You want to screen share, Wayne? That's fine with me if you want to do that.
Let's see if I can do it easily, okay? It says
Stop share now.
you cannot start screen sharing while other participant is sharing.
Yep, so I just stopped shared, so you should be able to share now.
All right, thanks. Okay. Thank you so much. This is a 2-component project. One thing was picked up from, let's say, a historical point of view. the existing PT stairs. This is a 50-year-old house built in 1973. Maybe my math is a little off, 49 years. And when it was built, it had these stairs that were built with it. The new owner, Mr. Ciolo, bought the house in 1998 and continued to use those stairs. And then after a while, like most people, you think it's part of the project. And he rebuilt the stairs about 2 years ago without conservation permission. So in the course of doing this, and in the course of talking to Drew, we'd like permission for these existing PT stairs to be permitted legitimately. One of the issues, two of the issues that came up was the fact that at the platform, are you seeing my pointer or not?
No, sir, we're
I'm not
not.
seeing it.
We do have your presentation in hard copy.
Oh, you're not seeing my, oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
but we do have
Drew,
your presentation in
maybe you
hard
should do
copy.
this then.
Yeah, I'll put it up for a screen share.
Sorry.
Okay, just give me 1 second here.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I've got the existing conditions and proposed up on the screen now. Can you see that, Wayne?
I see I see the
Yep.
map.
Yep.
Okay, that's the site plan.
Yep.
I'd like to see my plan if I could.
The proposed?
Yep. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll start that over again. Drew, if you don't mind pointing out, it's a two-component job, so it should be a little simple. These stairs, it says existing PT stairs with landing to be permitted. It's 4 foot wide. As mentioned, they've been here since 1950, except they were rebuilt in 2019 or 2020. I'm not quite sure when, without permission to rebuild. So again, they're 50 years old. The owner had thought they were grandfathered. And then in the course of discussing with Drew, he mentioned that 4 feet is a legal width for these type of stairs, and that he would like to see proof that this landing would be cut in half to the 4 foot length. And was that it, Drew? Is that what you were thinking on that?
That was the only issue I had that we hadn't discussed, and it was something I just happened to notice on the site visit that I didn't see the first time around. I just didn't pick up on it. So, yeah, in order to keep the stairway in compliance with the standards of design under the bylaw, it has to maintain a width of 4 feet. You know, the only exception to that is when you have a jog that's necessary to avoid trees. Again, that would be a 4 foot, but this is just clearly a platform, so we want to make sure that we're consistent in this approach for standards of pathways, stairways through naturally vegetated areas.
Sure. Okay, thank you for so much. If there's any more discussion on that, I'd be glad to entertain it. Like I said, it's a two-component project. The second component is a little bit lower and extremely colored. It looks like there's going to be a revised plan required here anyway, with a correction on the stairway and a note. So one thing I want to mention is the owner would like to put in 4 additions. This multicolored area that you see on the right-hand side is the largest area. We seek a waiver to work within 50 feet of a coastal inland bank, excuse me. That is the one resource area that is here, is the inland bank. Top of the inland bank is clearly marked in that light blue area. Thank you, Drew. So it's within that area, so we seek that discretion from your part. And then there's an addition to the front. Thank you. And there's an addition in the front, very front, in the middle of the house. Now, this one here I'd like to eliminate since I have to do a revised plan. That area right now is full of masonry. There's masonry steps the exact size of the addition. So we'd like to get credit on the revised plan of 112 square feet on the table. That means the table has to change. I'm going to show you that in a minute. And the calculations that we use for the mitigation for this project. So we're looking for that area. Could we scroll up a little bit to the tables? I use your formula, the every 5 feet formula. It's on the right-hand side, Mashpee mitigation table, if we can blow that up a little bit. And all these areas were documented. Oops.
Sorry. Blew it up a little too much. Not sure what's happening with the image. Sorry, Wayne.
Yep, a little out of focus. Me.
Let me go back and reopen it up and see if that works.
Drew, I'm going to try this. Oh, yeah, you're doing it now, so you can't. Okay, sorry.
I'm not sure what happened to the image quality there, but
We all have a hard copy we can
yeah,
flip
they
to
all
and
have hard
view
copies
the.
too, Wayne. So
Okay. All right, I'm going to try to do this again. Do you mind signing off, and I'll try to get on? I found mine.
sure, you're ready. Ready when you are.
Okay. Is that up now?
It's coming. There it is. Yep.
Oh, great, great. Okay, thank you so much. Again, dynamic zoom. Okay, we're here. So that's the table, and I went every 5 foot, as you mentioned, 25 to 30, and 30 to 35, so on and so forth. And we came up with these totals, and the corresponding, we used the non-riparian formula here, 2.75. All that comes out to 702 square feet of mitigation that's required. So, am I doing okay with this?
Yeah.
Moving around?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a shrub table here that we also did. I like to do the shrub table with the spacing and so forth. It shows that 702 square feet are required, 737 square feet are provided. Okay, we have 29 total plants. We have the list of botanical name, common name, size, spacing, etc. Everything that should be used. The light blue area, or if you use AutoCAD, they call it cyan, C-Y-A-N area. And this is the area of mitigation that equals 737 square feet. And this is the area, again, that's divided into 5 feet increments, each one colored so you can see that the difference in area. We need to remove one tree. It's to the right for access to this area. And also the owner is asking, there's a double tree out here by the existing 8x12 shed. This just came up. One of the 2 trunks on the twin is decayed, and we would like to have that removed at the same time the tree in the front is removed. So 2 added features that don't show on the plan we'd like to bring up at this time. Other than that, and the credit we'd like to get for the 112 square feet, that is covered. It's coverage already. It's just to be built upon with the addition. And we'd like to change the table and reduce mitigation as any owner would like to do. That being said, we also have a wall here to be collapsed part of the landscaping and to put in a dry well. Same thing on the side, existing roof drains with above ground discharge, and we'll make this site better in compliance with stewardship that belongs to this property. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them.
Thank you, Wayne. Drew, comments?
Wayne, if you just want to stop share, I'm going to bring up some images of the property as well.
Okay, stop. Hang on. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. So, just to show the commissioners some images, top left here, looking at the existing home from the street. One of the addition areas here that's still being proposed here is where Wayne had said that this. You said that this area is no longer part of the application. This addition here, is that correct, Wayne?
No, the addition is part of the application, but the coverage is already there in the sense of masonry. So I'm looking at this as a coverage issue, and the coverage already exists, and it's my mistake for trying to re-include it. So there's 112 square feet that are currently currently covered and off the map as far as being able to use for conservation purposes. So if it's off the map, we're planning to build on top of that the addition. So yes, it's still part of the equation, but I'm trying to gain the coverage.
Appreciate the
Thank you.
clarification. Here is the flag tree for access purposes, and then I think it's these down here that are proposed due to risk concerns over the tree's health. One thing I would say, Wayne, in this instance, to remove a tree because of access and not health, I think that's going to up the mitigation that you were talking about removing from this having existing structure already to get a credit. It's a pretty large tree. My recommendation is you keep the mitigation the same in light of this tree being removed just for access purposes. It's a large, mature tree, and I think that keeping the mitigation the same because of this removal for access purposes would be my recommendation. If the homeowner wishes to have these trees removed, we have a protocol in place when it comes to trees that are thought to be of a hazardous nature. You have to get an arborist to assess them, and we need an actual assessment, a risk assessment from a certified arborist. Not saying I don't believe the homeowner, but that's the protocol when it comes to trees that are deemed or thought of to be a risk to the property. So we can take that up with the homeowner. He has to get an arborist to take a look at them and submit a report to our office. So we typically go along with an arborist assessment, but we don't just outright allow tree removal based on homeowner assessment. So that will need to take place. I think the mitigation looks good. Species list looks good. So you've got mitigation provided based on our waiver standards, which I think, given the relatively modest proposed additions, meets the waiver standard in my opinion. The project meets the performance standards for inland bank. There's no work occurring on the bank. Mitigation is proposed to create a buffer where one currently doesn't exist. We already went over the stairway that the platform should be removed, and that can be shown on a revised plan. So the stairway can maintain a 4-foot wide width from beginning to end. See if there's comments here. Board of Health septic inspection is required for change of footprint. Floor plans not included with submittal. Dwelling is limited to 3 bedrooms. And building comments. Proposed, so three bedrooms are subject to a determination of setbacks and lot coverage. That's the comments from the building commissioner. And no other comments.
Thank you, Chair. Questions and comments from our commissioners? Mr. Colombo.
Just a clarification on the platform. The entire platform comes out and then there's stairs, or is the platform just going to be reduced to the width of the staircase?
The fuzzy plan. So I think, I don't know what the best methodology here, Wayne, would be to just saw this off, restabilize, have this existing kind of break in the slope of the stairway. Whatever the best way to accommodate it is, whether it's removing this excessive part and then establishing any further stabilization in this area to maintain that 4-foot width. Also, I neglected to mention it because I don't know if this had taken place or not, but we want to make sure that the stairway was reviewed by the building commissioner, because it didn't receive a permit from Concom, so I don't know what the status is with the building department, and it does require a building permit. So we want to make sure that it's been inspected and passes merit with the building inspector. We want to have documentation of that.
Okay, I understand, sure. And I wish to say that middle platform was cantilevered and all I had to do was saw it off, but I seriously doubt it.
Probably.
So it probably has footings under it. The footings will be removed. There will be plantings put in its place, and the footings will, well, not removed, but they'll be relocated to be directly underneath the 4x4 platform that remains.
So it is a break in the raised place that flattens out
Right,
and then proceed.
okay.
So to maintain that, I think is fine, whatever they need to do to eliminate the excessive width.
It doesn't look like the railings line up, so it would be hard to take that all out anyways.
Yeah. I think a conference with the building commission will sort all that out as far as what the best methodology
Yeah.
would be.
Sure,
So that's
sure. And they'll do it, of
condition.
course, when they're doing the addition. So the same carpenters, it's Mike Canada.
Oh, okay,
Builder.
yep. I know, he'll figure it out.
Other questions and comments from our commissioners?
Can I ask a question? Sorry, it's Erin. Where are the two trees that are coming out?
So,
Good luck on that plan.
yeah, they're basically right here and here on either side of this proposed, just this addition right here. So I think it's this tree right here, and then
Yeah,
there's
good.
two kind of in this area right here.
A little further back,
Right
That's the
there.
two.
Those
There you
two,
go.
okay, yeah. So those, and these are the ones that are, the homeowner has, thinks that they may present a risk, a hazard risk to the home. This one up here is, over here is for access purposes, for the construction of this addition.
Is that one that can be put back after the fact or something planted afterwards?
Well, that's what I had discussed, because in this getting,
Sorry.
it's occupied by structure, and he included in mitigation calculations for this, which he didn't really need. And the removal of this tree would keep those mitigation calcs the same. And that would kind of make everything kind of even up. Do you have any issue with that, Wayne? I didn't really get your feedback on that, but I'm assuming that.
No, it seems to be fair. I was just thinking to save 112 square feet on your one-to-one basis. So you're getting 112 square feet of mitigation for one tree and maybe a part of a second, depends.
Right.
So I take to heart what you said about getting the arborist. It's probably going to be the same arborist that takes down the first tree anyhow to look at the second tree, to judge it, and make sure he comments to you before any of this gets removed. So back to the same question. Yeah, I think the mitigation is doable. Yes, fair.
Great, thank you.
Other questions and comments from our commissioners? Drew, to summarize the potential conditions on this, we're looking at approval by the Board of Health, and were there any other items that,
I would say that condition of removal of the platform to maintain the 4-foot wide stairway width, and 2-year monitoring and maintenance for mitigation plantings. That's what I wrote in my, and revegetation of the abandoned platform footprint, which may not be necessary. It's such a small area, it may just regrow, and it's a very steep bank, so it may not be worth that kind of disturbance. We can kind of wait and see how it
And
recovers.
a letter from an arborist on that double tree?
Yes, and then arborist assessment on the hazard tree.
And then what about the building?
Building,
Board of Health?
Yeah, what was it? You said the building they have to go through for that?
Building
The stairs?
inspector?
oh,
Right.
right, sorry,
For the
yeah, building
staircase.
inspector comments,
Do we have them, or they haven't been made yet?
with the comments? Oh, we have them. The 3 additions are subject to a determination of setbacks and lot coverage from the zoning board.
Is there any questions or comments from the audience or anyone online?
Oh, sorry, ending at DEP number.
That's right, Stacy said that in the beginning. Well, I'll spare my fellow commissioners the effort. I motion that we close and issue the 6:15 hearing, Joseph J. Kathleen C. Coolio, 65 Redwood Circle, with the condition that the DEP number is issued and the comments do not warrant further debate, that a letter from a certified arborist on the removal of the trees is obtained, that the platform is cut off to maintain the separation, And the disturbed area within has is revegetated through mitigation, that there is a 2-year, okay, now I'm going to need some monitoring and maintenance, and that the Board of Health also signs off on this project. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. If there's no further discussion,
Got a question.
go ahead, Mr. Colombo.
There is no DEP number on this as of yet?
No, sir, that was the condition we just placed.
So are we going to keep this hearing open?
Oh, that's right. You just, now I got to make all those conditions again, or can I just continue it?
Sorry.
I've got a motion for continuance to July 14th at 6:18. That was so much easier. Paul, you should have just cut me off. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. Voting. Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Thank you, Wayne.
Appreciate it.
Guys, I have to sign off. I'm so sorry. I'm stuck with the kids. But thank you for everything.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, bye.
Hi, Alex.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Just keep coming, huh?
DEP. So we'll be continuing that. Now calling the 6:18 hearing for Avi Spivak, 120 Ventures LLC, 120 Fells Pond Road, proposed dock and elevated walkway over existing walkway and mitigation plantings. Representative, Wet Tech Land Design Incorporated, this is an NOI.
Yes, hi, good evening again. Thank you very much for letting me talk about this project. It's another two-component project. One issue is easy, the other issue, which is a dock, is a little bit more difficult. So,
I'm trying to find the, I can stop share, Wayne, if you want to share again.
yeah, let me try it again, if you don't mind.
Sure. I hope you have it, because I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it? Oh,
No,
my
I'm
God.
not sure why it's not on my,
Yeah.
it wasn't included in my presentation.
Huh. Let's see if I can bring it up. I brought it up on my screen, but that's not on your screen, correct?
Not yet.
Let's see.
Should be able to share since I stopped share. If you,
Yeah, I know. I just, what's up? What happened here? Hang on. Trouble is, I can't move the screen to, I've got everything listed and up. I just can't.
Tell you what, Wayne, we're starting to approach the hour-and-a-half mark. If you'd like 5 minutes to
Yeah.
sort this out, we'll let anyone in the audience or on the commission, namely myself, who has to use the facilities, to do so.
Okay. Well, let me try to work it out while you go 5 minutes early.
Okay.
How's that?
sounds good.
Thank you. Let me see what's going on.
There we go. Starting to see it, Wayne. I think you got it.
Yeah, well, trouble is I can't land on what I'm trying to do. The whole plan, I've got you guys, and I don't know how to scroll this thing. That's the trouble. I can just find it. I have it here. I have other things. That.
Starting to scratch here.
No. I know. I just can't find the actual drawing. I just don't know why. It says files, Dropbox, SharePoint. Oh, hang on.
But we can see your screen now, so that's good.
Okay. Do you see this?
We see you going through some files.
Yeah.
Yep, so I'm sure once you open up what you have there, we should be able to see it.
If you need me to do it, I have the file open. I can share my screen.
There it is. We see it.
You see it now?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Fine.
By the way, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
We can hear you. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Is that file up?
It was, and now it's not. I think if you double click that PDF there, we should be able to see it again.
Okay. New share. The sharing. I may have to borrow whoever volunteered this. I'm sorry. Expert. No. It's all right.
So neither us nor he has the file available?
Yeah, up the share.
Okay.
I'm going to try one more time, see if it's easy. Sorry. Share. Oh, boy. It's print what comes up last, and here it is.
Yeah,
but
can you double click that and see what comes up?
yeah, I'm double clicking. Maybe I got to shut it off first. There we go. Shut it off. Let me try again one more time, and then I'll have to.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, down below. If you had those panes up, you could select.
Yep.
Yep, right.
No, I think I you know what I did is I saved over it. I'm done.
When
So if you can bring up yours, I saved over it. That's why it came up. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm gonna
We
see
could-
just give me one moment. I'm gonna see if I can find it here.
Okay.
It's really annoying. There it is. All right, I got it. Just give me one second to get down to the plans, blow them up to size, and we are good to go, Wayne.
All right. Good. Okay. Thank you.
That was easy.
And it's not
that
blurry,
took a while.
thank God.
Okay, I'm going to go through this. Is everybody back from the bathroom?
Yes, sir, thank you.
All present and accounted for.
Okay, good. Thank you for your patience with me. I apologize. This is a project, again, it's two components. Drew will show you some pictures before, but let me explain these two first. We're trying to replicate, thank you for blowing that up. I have a cross-section. There's some existing in-ground timbers, like the landscapers used to do in the old days. They've been there for, God almighty, this house is another 40 or 50 years old, and they're badly eroding. They were never put in properly. They're undermining at 8 inches, and the ramp down to the next step is another 4, so you're getting a 12-inch step. The erosion is to be corrected using an elevated stairway, as seen in this cross-section, and you can see it. We're putting diamond piers in because the slope is less than 3 to 1, so we can use actual diamond piers. There's less intrusion, less coverage of the ground. It's a vast improvement. It shows the platforms and the steps that need to come down. I think it's 7 feet all the way up to 24. So 20 steps, 21 steps, something like that are in here. And I call it out somewhere on the platform. There it is, 29 riser steps are calculated with 7-inch risers and 12-inch treads plus platforms. You need the platforms only because of the shallow grade, very steep to walk down, but when you're building steps, they're very shallow. So you have to come down a few steps to a platform, down, so forth. So I show the elevation at each point, and then at various points only, we are putting these diamond piers that you can see in the bottom. So this is sort of a self-mitigation type of project because it's promoting no erosion. We are capping off the ends of these ties. If we take them out, it's going to create a problem. We're going to put more crushed stone underneath, and we're going to make sure that the outflow here there's no erosion and none that's been caused before. So it's a self-mitigation type of project. Then it leads to a dock. The dock is shown here as panels. It's a seasonal dock. They're 4 by 8 panels of aluminum, very stereotypical of what has been used for seasonal. They have to be pulled out every year. The neighbor has some to the north. If you can just scroll down a little bit. True? Yeah. Okay, you can scroll that way too because there's another neighbor.
Oh,
with his dock. Okay, that dock is out 24 feet, by the way. This dock is out 24 feet. A lot of the towns we work with, including yours, I believe, wants a 2.5 to 3 foot separation of the bottom of the seaworthy vehicle, whatever it is. In this case, they're small kayaks, canoes, etc. So we have put in one panel, 4 by 8, a second panel, 4 by 8. It shows in the 16-foot range, and then 2 4-foot panels across that sort of T-bone to the original ones going out. With another 8 additional 4 plus 4 makes 24 feet out into the Fells Pond. You can see by the bathymetrics here, the shoreline down below, just observed edge falling off this plan. It shows that 4.2 is the elevation of Fells Pond. And we're at 1.1, if you can see, just below this. So 4.2, 1.1, we'll get a nice 3-foot clearance and no problems with the bottom of the pond. The panels are shown at the bottom of the plan in pictures so that you can see them. I'm sure you're all aware of them. If you want to scroll down. And one of the neighbors set a precedent. He's already in there 24 feet. So apparently that's a good distance to be in. These are the panels. They're on shoes that sit down and are self-adjusting so that they stay level. There's no permanent harm to the bottom of the pond. And they're removed every year, and they're attached directly to the last step or platform, or the platform I mentioned or discussed in the first part of this. So if trying to keep it short, thank you for all the time you've given me. Thank you very much. Any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them.
Thank you, Wayne. Drew, comments?
Just a few things. Project does meet the performance standards. Fells Pond, as I'm sure the commissioners are aware, is not subject to Chapter 91 jurisdiction. There is no harbor master review. It's a privately owned pond. It is not a water body of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts because it's under 10 acres in size. The proposed walkway is definitely a better situation than the current situation, which is an at-grade timber tie series of steps, which are currently eroding root systems being exposed. So the least intrusive way to deal with this access is to build right over the existing steps with the elevated platform. And those diamond piers are really reduce the amount of impact digging associated with the supports. So certainly a nice feature to reduce impacts on the bank for the stairway. So no shellfish resources in Fells Pond either, so there is no shellfish constable comments. The one thing I did just have clarification, Wayne, is in your narrative you weren't sure if trees were going to be removed or not as a result of the project. And I know I'll just show the commissioners the one tree here that would seem, I don't know, if this tree here right where the bridge out to the dock is going to be is, you didn't really say one way or another if it's going to be removed, but you indicated if it does, that there would be mitigation for it. But I'm just wondering, when will a decision be made? What's being looked at here?
Okay. The good news is when I went down and checked the flagging, did the flagging, we were able to avoid two of the trees that I thought had to go. A white oak that's right along the side, that stays. Black oak stays on the left-hand side. All the shrubbery and vegetation stays. But that tree that you're looking at on the right-hand picture is a tupelo. And that has to go. It's just, it's poorly anchored, number one. It is directly in the way of the existing stairway. Otherwise, we move it out of the way and let it stay and let it fall on its own.
Sure.
But it will fall eventually. It's very precarious the way it is. There is probably another three or four tupelos to the right of this picture that on the owner's property, right on the edge, typical of what a tupelo does. But we'd like to remove that. Drew and I spoke about this project prior to all this knowledge. I had been down there, of course. I had seen it. I talked about a couple trees, but at the same time didn't know which ones were there. So we talked about mitigation if necessary. So with the removal of that, yes, it's necessary.
Okay.
So we can shore up and plant along the right side of this stairway as an added feature to try to prevent erosion. How should I say this? We're not preventing erosion. You can't do that. But we're going to slow down the erosion that's occurring there using more crushed stone and using tiebacks for those timbers. And then we can plant so that whatever overage comes out, we can be absorbed in mitigation that goes down at least part of this walkway. So in that case, you tell me what you'd like to use. I think the walkway is 45 feet long, I believe. So if that's the length and you allow for 3 feet of width, that's 135 square feet from top to bottom. But I don't think it's needed near the top. Or we put it where it's more appropriate in these corner cutbacks that are here. We're mimicking the shape of the curvilineal original step path that was there by using this angular constructive path. And we can pick the, oh God, in Martha's Vineyard they call them embankments. It's such a funny name. But it's where the water really extrudes from beneath that walkway. It's where we can really concentrate plantings, I would say, in groups, 3 or 4 groups of 3 or 4 plants in each one of these corners where the erosion is the worst.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got carried away.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as just a reminder in the commission, I do recommend to close and issue no DEP number so you can continue in the absence of any DEP comments to close on July 14th.
Questions and comments from our commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Go for it, Steve.
Question. I was looking at the number of diamond pairs, which is a good solution for this stair and walkway, but there's 32 of them because there's 2 per side. I was just wondering if the applicant can redesign the stairs where we can minimize the number of diamond pairs. They still need to be dug in, shallow depression, but there's still digging involved. So I wonder if we can minimize the number of platforms or lengthen the platforms out and increase the number of risers in each run.
I think what you're saying, I understand exactly what you're saying. I think I've just put in too many. I think this has to be redesigned anyhow because we're talking about some mitigation. And what I will do, and I promise to do, is to concentrate on those areas that require diamond piers. Some of these step platforms can be congruently put together so that all you need is the interface between them. And I believe I overdid it just to promote the project. That's the only thing that wasn't calculated here. The 7-inch risers and 12-inch treads are kind of de rigueur. When you do these platforms, you can't reduce the number. You can reduce the number of steps, but I promise to reduce the number of diamond piers down to a very countable number. It won't be 32.
You can go to an 8-inch riser and a 10-inch tread to help out also too. You're not bound by the 7 and 12, but I just think that you could have a longer platforms, and then instead of having 2 or 3 rises, you could have 7 or 8 rises, and then drop down to another platform just to minimize the number of diamond pairs. So
okay, let me place those exactly where they are, and I'll make a judgment with Drew that I've reduced it appropriately. If not, I'll go to your countermeasure, which is to increase the treads and reduce the number of steps, which would do the same thing. I think I've just overdone these diamond piers, to be honest with you, to show more intrusion, and I'm glad for the pushback. So let me try my way first, and then I'll go your way second. I think maximum outdoor steps are 8 1/4 inches. So we'll go from 7 to 7.5, maybe to 8, like you said, and work that out if necessary. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Colombo?
I missed, where are the dock panels stored in the off-season? I missed that.
The owner right now is storing his canoe up on the slope, which is not really appropriate because it's on some type of vegetation. So we'll have to take these and put them probably on this deck. You see this deck that's up above? We can store those over there easily. They will, cantilever slightly, imposing on this area, which is largely barren above the boulder wall. It's largely barren, no vegetation. We'll take those panels, which are very, most of the time when I say people are going to move floats and so forth in coastal waters, that never happens because of the weight of these. But these are very light, very movable, and you can condition that to be put in an area that's already
Not a condition not to be placed over naturally vegetated areas.
Yeah.
And there is, as Wayne described, there is kind of a cleared landscaped area up here just by the deck that would suffice for off-season storage.
Any further questions from our commissioners? Is there anyone in the audience or on the phone who was called in to make commentary?
Is there anyone online in the Zoom meeting who wishes to comment?
Yes, my name is David Van Leeuwen. I live on Fells Pond Road. We use the pond frequently, and after looking at the drawings, we just felt that the length that the pier extends into the lake, it's not a big lake, it's basically a pond, is kind of out of character with the other docks on the pond. Most of them extend maybe 10, 12 feet into the pond. There are no motorboats or anything else, as Mr. Zaveras mentioned. It's for canoes and kayaks where you really don't need 3 feet of water to safely get in and out of a boat or a canoe. So just looking at it, it looked like that 24 feet was excessive. So if that could be looked at, that would be appreciated, because like we said, it does take away the character of the pond if all of a sudden you have something extending that far into the pond.
So Wayne, maybe there's an opportunity to talk to the homeowners about potentially reducing the walkway. I mean, from a wetland standpoint, I don't think there's really much difference in terms of, any impacts to the resource area, but maybe it would just be good to have a conversation just to, address that kind of uniformity issue concern raised. It's really, something that I wouldn't consider to be within the Conservation Commission's purview, but we'll, recommend that maybe a conversation take place on that.
Yeah, I can talk with the owners. Like I said, I try to justify this based on depth. I'm doing one in another town where depth is the important thing. And the funny thing is the depth in coastal waters in that town doesn't make any difference from the depth in freshwater ponds, which to me is amazing. And the agent even mentioned that because they just have one fixed rule for depth. So I would like to throw it at the conservation board in that sense to say that if you can stipulate what your considered safe depth would be, we'd be glad to go along with it. Bear in mind, we have a current dock existing to the south that I showed you on this plan that is out currently 24 feet. We didn't try to match that. Yeah. What we did is follow the bathymetrics that are here. If you say that 2.5 feet are
Wayne, that's not
correct
within our
depth,
purview as a
Really,
conservation
the depth
commission.
issue is really for coastal docks where you're dealing with tidal influence, and that's really not, obviously the case here. So we're going to defer to you and your client and the abutter to work that out. There are no stipulations or specific language regarding depth in this type of setting. So I would really just defer to you and your clients on that one.
Okay. All right. We'll do that, and then expect a revised plan by if you choose to move this to the 14th. We'll get a revised plan for both the diamond piers and the length of this dock as well. And I just got to mention something. I cannot be here the 14th, so
It would only be called in if DEP included some, conditions in their issuance with a permit number. I can't imagine that there would be, but in that event, then we would have to redress it when you're available. And if not, the commission would simply, review the DEP number and a lack of conditions. If that was the case, they would go ahead and just issue it, and your attendance would not be necessary. Same thing with the previous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And we should do some talking in between, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Okay. Any other questions? I'd be glad to answer.
Stacy, what would be the time for the continuance on the 14th?
6:21.
If there's no further discussion, we'll entertain a motion for continuance to July 14th at 6:21.
I'll move to close an issue.
We're looking for a
Looking at
continuance.
Request for continuance, Charlie.
Oh, all right, sorry about that. I kind of got lost there.
July 14th at 6:21 PM.
All right, move to continue to July 4th, 6:21 PM.
14th, July 14th.
6 what? 6?
Do I hear a second for continuance to July 14th at 6:21 PM?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Now voting. Brian?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes,
Alex?
she left.
Oh, yeah, sorry, guys. Steve?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Good luck hearing these two hearings. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, Wayne.
Everybody have a good one.
Yeah.
Now calling the 6:21 hearing for 98 Pompanesett Island Road Trust, 98 Pompanesett Island Road, proposed reconstruction of existing decks, including minor expansion, reconfiguration of driveway area, and required mitigation planting. Representative is Falmouth Engineering. This is an RDA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. This is a property at number 98 Pompanesett Island Road. You recently reviewed another RDR in this to allow them to upgrade the septic system. The septic system is shown on this plan in the background for reference. Prior to submitting this application, I consulted with Drew. I had reviewed the regulations, and it was my opinion that an RDA was appropriate, and after reviewing the project with Drew, we both concurred that an RDA was appropriate. It's fairly, someone's in opposition to my project, I think.
Sitting well with pets. You can mute, Aaron, if it's in the background.
The activities proposed under this RDA are relatively minor. There's very minor proposed expansions to the footprint of the deck. The deck is in need of reconstruction. It's all within a lawn area. There's an existing driveway between the house and Pompanesett Island Road that would be reworked. There's interior renovations proposed and entryways between the house and the street, new entrances on the street side of the house proposed. There are minor increases in impervious surfaces. They're all within the 50 to 100 foot section of the buffer to a coastal bank. And to offset for that increase in deck size, we are proposing areas of mitigation that are shaded in green to enhance the existing buffer. And the areas of each of the total area of each planting area is identified and meets your buffer mitigation regulation. We're proposing a mix of bayberry and beach plum in these areas, 3-gallon size, 4 to 5 feet on center. And that sums up the project.
Thank you. Drew, comments?
Just to show the commissioners some of the images of the site. Top left, looking at from the road, this area is, as Mike mentioned, there was a previous septic upgrade, so that's why you see the disturbance here in the driveway, and then obviously with this current proposal to do some reconfiguration out here. This has always been a heavily landscaped and hardscaped area even prior to the septic upgrade, which is currently taking place. Shot of the existing deck from the seaward side of the home. So you've got existing lawn going up to coastal dune, coastal bank area. So there will be some buffer zone enhancements here and around these pockets. Going back to the plan real quick. There's the coastal bank highlighted in brown, coastal dune beyond it, and then you've got coastal beach transitioning to land under ocean. So just some areas to enhance the buffer. And minor modification of the deck. The reason I recommended an RDA is because this is kind of like straddling the 50 to 100 foot area, and as long as it's agreed upon with the homeowner and conditioned as such in a motion for mitigation, then I would recommend a negative determination.
Thank you, Drew. Questions and comments from our commissioners? No one online?
Any comments from anyone attending via Zoom? Not a commissioner?
I'm guessing no one in the audience, so given that, we will entertain a motion. This is an RDA.
And in the motion, I do make a recommendation for condition of mitigation plantings and 1 year monitoring and maintenance of all mitigation plantings.
I move for negative determination with conditions of mitigation planning and 1 year of monitoring and maintenance of all mitigation planning.
Thank you, Charlie. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Voting, Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now calling the 624 hearing, Southworth Mashpee Properties, LLC, 69 Shoestring Bay Road. Proposed construction of a new single-family dwelling, garage, pool, patio, driveway, landscaping path to water vista pruning. A representative is Baxter Nye Engineering. This is an amended order of conditions.
Could I turn the lights on?
Absolutely not.
My eyes are getting old, you know.
It's the next set of lights over behind the podium there. Yep, should do it. The other one? Nope, there you go. And then if you want to turn on the ones, light switch to the next door, will light up the whole room. There you go.
Thanks. So good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Matthew Eddy, professional engineer with Baxter & I Engineering and Surveying. I'm representing Carrie and Jane Leslauer, who is the applicants for the filing in front of you tonight. They're in a purchase and sales agreement to purchase this lot from Willow Bend. This lot was approved back in September 15th of last year, 2021. Order conditions number 0433135. So this is an amended filing to that order. I believe it's straightforward. I've reviewed it initially with Drew back a few weeks ago and got an email from him today that he thought everything was straightforward other than a couple of selective trees that we can discuss that we were looking to potentially remove. The order of conditions that was issued in September of last year approved the limit of work in the project for development. When they approve limit of work is that heavy dark line that outlines the project area. So we have stayed within that and actually are not even disturbing all of that area that was previously approved. As a matter and condition of that prior order, it basically said once you have the detail of the actual house that's going to be coming in there instead of just an envelope, the detailed house and grading, et cetera, that needed just to be submitted as an amended order. And so, again, that's what you have before you today. The proposed house is a single-family residence with garage and porches. The footprint is approximately 3,300 square feet. There is a pool, driveway, and patios. There's a small, it's really actually, yeah, right, there's a little pool in that backyard. It's really more of a wading pool within that patio area. There's also a proposed landscaping plan that has been submitted. The lawn area is being kept under the 10% requirement under your Regulation 31, so that condition has been met. As I'm sure you're aware, Willow Bend is on sewer. They have their own wastewater treatment system, so there is no septic system here. We have proposed dry wells for all roof runoff in the patio areas. So again, I believe the house proposal is, again, straightforward, just providing you the detail. Two things that have been added, and again, I had discussed them with Drew initially on the best way to bring them forward, and he agreed just to do that as part of the amended order, is the applicant would like to do a soft path down to the water's edge and a kayak rack as shown on the plan, and then also vista pruning. And all of the vista pruning will be done once the house construction is underway. It'll be reviewed with staff on site for the appropriate areas for the vista pruning, and that will follow your Regulation 29 protocols and stay within that. So I believe that it's fairly straightforward. As I had stated, the limits of work have not changed, and I believe that we have continued to meet the wetland interests, and they will remain met as was approved last September. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Drew, comments?
So this is the aerial image of the lot, kind of a strange, kind of like a worktop-shaped lot. So you've got some area that's always been maintained as part of like golf course access here, where a large portion of the house footprint and associated hardscaping is proposed. Going back to triggering that drop-down menu. So your resource areas, you've got coastal bank, which you can see delineated here. The project is getting into the 50-foot setback to coastal bank, but the setback that's really being maintained is the 50-foot wetlands buffer, and I believe the entire project is outside the 200-foot riverfront.
That's correct, yep.
Quaker Run. So there's the 200-foot setback here. You can see on that dashed line, Quaker Run River, just to go back over, is right here. This is actually, that's the only part of Quaker Run that actually looks like a river. It comes out into Shoestring Bay. The rest of it is a series of bog ditches and isolated wetlands. So as Matt had mentioned, this was brought before the commission as a kind of development envelope. initially, with the understanding that an amended order would come back to show the house details. So everything is kept within that building envelope that was previously approved and issued an order of conditions. So you've also got land subject to coastal storm flow, and then a buffer zone to coastal bank, BBW, salt marsh. Coastal bank is delineated by slope definition. It is not a sediment source bank, so it does serve as a standard, performance standard for a vertical buffer to storm damage. Mentioned the previously approved envelope. No riverfront incursion, preservation of the 50-foot naturally vegetated buffer strip to the BBW, with the exception of allowable proposed pathway and associated kayak rack through the buffer strip. The one thing that I just communicated to Matt today was when looking at the landscape plan, I just noted this area. This area here, we can have some back and forth over this. So it's a clear, select trees and replant with native evergreen and ornamental material in this section here. Go back to the image, I believe that's kind of like in this.
Right, that's correct. That's, if I could maybe just expound on that a little bit.
Yeah.
The right just uphill of that, that's the, there's a large pump station there as part of the wastewater system for Willow Bend. So just below that, as the house goes in, this, what they're looking to do, and again, we can review it on site with you, Drew, or another staff member, just certain, pitch pines that might be hazardous as the construction's going on, looking at removing those, just selective, and then planting all of those areas with native buffered shrubs and other vegetation in those areas to actually, I think, possibly actually enhance that area. So that's what the intent was there. It wasn't to go in and just to, and again, we do that in consultation, yeah.
So you're saying it was it's a concern over potential construction impacts that may jeopardize or compromise the health of the pitch pines? Or? Yeah,
well, and so, also, the, pitch pines as far as, the hazard of it, of them coming over potentially.
Right.
And then with that pump station, when you look back when Shoestring Bay Road was constructed and the pump station right on the downhill side of the pump station, they actually built there's like a stone wall there. So, there's some been grade modification there. So it's really just looking at some of those selectively. I mean, if we could condition it that way, that, you look at, only with approval by staff. If you look at it and you say, no, we don't think you need to take any of these out, then that would be what the condition would be.
Sounds reasonable. I think the other thing that just caught my attention was the ornamental plantings, so I'd just like to eliminate that.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The only thing that caught one of the other things that caught my attention was that in the plan that denotes that area of selected clearing,
Yep.
it also says ornamental plantings, and I wouldn't want to see any of that.
No, it would only be
No
native
ornamentals, it would be 100%
buffer.
native if we were to go into that
100%,
scenario.
yes.
So I would like to see a revised plan with that note, just
Okay.
eliminating the word ornamental.
Yeah, yep.
And it could be, I'm comfortable with that being a condition that, based on an on-site, to kind of assess what the situation is. I mean, generally speaking, I do understand the pitch pines are vulnerable, but if they're healthy, I wouldn't want to set a precedent to take them out just in anticipation of storm damage, because then you're looking at that kind of precedent going, to any property across town. within jurisdiction.
Understood.
So,
Yep.
understand the concern, but in the absence of any health issues with the trees, I wouldn't recommend removing them in anticipation that they,
Okay.
are susceptible to storm damage, because you could make that argument or
Okay.
any tree out there. So, but the approach as far as going out and assessing it and looking at it is fine.
Okay.
I don't have an issue with that. So,
What would your condition sound like that you would?
So I would recommend approval of the amended request with the condition of an on-site meeting with the consultant to assess this vegetated area for potential tree removal.
Questions and comments from our commissioners?
Oh, I'm sorry, the other thing is that we do want to see because I know you're waiting for the house construction to finalize the Vista corridor juxtaposition kind of. It's mentioned in your narrative, it's going to be 50% of the width, but it doesn't really show on the current plan. And I know you're just waiting for optimal kind of time to determine that, so that would also be a condition of.
Yes, absolutely.
Questions and comments from our commissioners? Mr. Colombo?
I'm looking at the proposed driveway, and is that, I'm just trying to envision the water coming off of it. This leach basin, is that on the surface?
That leach basin is not intended, I believe you're talking about the one that's just to the right of the garage on the plan, right? Is that the, it's not, yeah, so that driveway, yeah, that leach basin's not intended to pick up the driveway runoff. It would all be stabilized there. There's already a gravel road that goes through there that's part of the golf course. That's going to obviously be modified. I mean, we could, if you can pan maybe just a little bit to the right, Drew, where the, yeah, there you go. Right about where his pointer is, where Drew's pointer is, that's the low area for the driveway runoff. So we could, I'm just trying to think what would be the best approach. I probably wouldn't tie it into that leach basin, but what we could do is maybe I'd create just, you know, a small inlet there. I mean, is a catch basin necessary? I mean, I'd like to not put a catch basin. I could put a catch basin and then tie it to the leach basin. I'm not sure that the catch basin is necessary, but if you feel that that's needed, I would be willing to add that to the plan. And does that address what your thoughts were? I mean, is that what you were kind of thinking along those lines?
I'm looking at the natural slope. I'm assuming that driveway's going to be sloping down in that direction.
Correct.
And towards the garage?
Well, in a way, if you look on that plan there, you see the, yeah, it'll be away from the garage. You see the 1.1% slope with the arrow,
Okay,
so that's
yep.
that flow, and then the driveway up above, it's at a 2% slope, so it's relatively flat. It's not too steep.
Okay.
But it will flow down, and it's designed to flow down to kind of that point where that radius is on the little turnaround area there. So that's where I would propose putting, it's right where that spot shot is. What is it, 2480, I think? That's where I would propose, you know, we could put some type of inlet there to intercept that runoff there, and then I could, you know, pipe that to the leach basin for direct infiltration after the catch basin treatment. And then we have, there's also then the additional, it's all, you know, vegetated buffer to the, what is that, to the northeast, I'll call it, to the plan right. And then that's all golf course to the far right there. Yeah, there's a T actually. Yeah, it's actually to the left or to the right of that a little bit more in back. And there's a T back in there. So there's actually some drainage pattern along that cart path that's just off the lot for the golf course. So it would be kind of, the runoff from the driveway would be meshing with that. But we could add something at the driveway to help enhance the, you know, and intercept more of the runoff.
I'm just thinking the kind of rains we get now. We don't get normal rain anymore, and that's a big area.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some water coming off
Yeah,
that.
no, we can do that, and if we could do that just as a, you know, a condition, I'll make that change to the plan, just the same with the note on the removal on the landscape. But if we could do that with a, you know, a condition of the approval, and just get the revised plan to Drew for file, that would be great. But yeah, no, absolutely, it's a good point. And you're right, I know the rains, it's...
It's going to get better.
Right.
Any questions and comments from our commissioners on Zoom? If there's no one in the audience or online, we will entertain a motion. This is an amended order of conditions with two proposed conditions. One for the Vista and the other for the arborist to look at the pitch pines, correct?
Or meeting with myself.
Or yourself.
Consultant to look at pitch pines.
Very good. Don't everyone jump at once. Charlie, I see you warming up.
Clock's ticking, it's not getting any earlier.
I would motion that,
I'll make a motion that we accept the amended order conditions with the stipulations that Drew mentioned for on-site meeting for plantings, and I can't think of anything else I missed on that.
A revised plan for vista pruning.
And for plans for vista pruning.
Thank you, Steve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. Voting, Brian,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You all have a good evening. I know.
Be in touch.
All right, Drew, thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay. What would be the time for that continuance?
For 12.
7:14 at 6:09.
All right, now calling the 627 meeting, Pompanesett Island Road LLC, 12 Pompanesett Island Road. Proposed renovation of existing boathouse, deck, and modifications to existing septic system. Representative is Holmes and McGrath. This is an NOI, and I've been informed that because they have not been issued a DEP number, there is no one here tonight, so we will entertain a motion, if there's no further discussion, to extend this meeting to July 14th at 6:09 PM. Was 6:09 the correct time? Okay.
I make a motion, this is Steve Cook, to continue this hearing to the date and time that the chairman just mentioned.
July 14th at 6:09.
July 14th at 6:09 PM.
Thank you, Steve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that. You both will.
Paul get that, or did Charlie? All right. All right.
Sorry, Charlie.
Thank you. Now voting. Brian,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Now calling the 6:30 hearing for Eric Walker, 452 Nathaniel Ellis Highway. Proposed detached garage and modification to existing driveway and mitigation plantings. Representative is Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. This is an NOI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my first time before Mashpee, and I want to thank Stacy for her help. I hope I put together a complete submittal. She was extremely helpful in assisting me with the submittal. I represent Eric Walker. This does have a DEP file number, SE0433180. And we did have a change after we submitted the plan, after Mr. Walker saw the mitigation that would be required, which would have been 2-to-1, with the initial driveway that he had on the plan. And that is the old plan there, Drew. I don't know if you've got the new one up.
I don't have it up on the screen, but I think they all should have it, one of them. What's the most recent revision date?
6/21? 6/20. Yep, and I wrote a letter on, and we delivered, hand-delivered new sets.
Yep.
So what happened is he reconfigured the structure itself, and I think that's a good thing. Because what that did is, if you look at the plan that's on the screen, all the driveway does not have to be relocated with the current proposal, and nor does he have to do the 2-to-1 mitigation. Eric would prefer to leave that area natural as a natural buffer, not only from screening from Route 151, to give a natural area down to the wetland resource area. The wetlands were delineated by ECR Environmental on 8/21. We have a bordering vegetated wetland, perennial stream. There's no vernal pools. There's no priority habitat. There's no zone act. The project consists of constructing a small garage with a one-bedroom over You can see we have the erosion control measures, which would be straw wattle proposed against the driveway. There is an existing driveway between the project area and the resource area, and we're not changing any of the drainage patterns. The stormwater will continue to flow down through the driveway area. If there's concerns over roof runoff, then we can put dry wells in. It is a previously disturbed area. In the riverfront area and the buffer zone, you can see part of the structures in the 100-foot buffer and part of it is not. We are proposing to tie into the existing septic system. The existing septic system has a capacity of 4 bedrooms. The home site has 3 bedrooms, so it can accommodate it from a flow capacity. And to facilitate that tie-in, we're proposing a new 1,500-gallon tank, and we'll tie into the existing distribution box. And what we'll do is we'll take the force main and we'll get that reconnected to the system as well. All of that work is outside the 100-foot buffer for the septic system. I think that is all I have to present at this point. I'll be happy to address any questions you might have.
Thank you much. Drew, comments?
So, one of the things that did get issued a DEP number, did you see the comments from the reviewer regarding the alternatives analysis?
Yeah.
Narratives, and that is a requirement under the bylaw to provide an alternatives analysis when it comes to riverfront. So that will need to be done. Also the building commissioner, Board of Health comments, plan submitted under review. Building commissioner, I'm not sure if I'm going to just read his comments for the record. As he opposes the installation of a septic system at this time, a preliminary inspection of the existing dwelling has determined an unpermitted conversion to a multifamily unit. A proposed future ADU application to my office will be denied. Have you had a chance to speak to the building commissioner?
Could you repeat that again? I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, yeah. He says, I oppose the installation of a septic system at this time. You didn't specify the tank, or if it's limited to the tank. I'm not sure if he requires clarification on that. Said a preliminary inspection of the existing dwelling has determined an unpermitted conversion to a multifamily unit. A proposed future ADU application to my office will be denied. So I don't know what an ADU application is.
I don't either, but, so that's the building commissioner?
That's the building commissioner's
Okay.
comments, yeah.
So he has Attorney Corain working on this with him. So one of the things that we realized that needs to be worked out with the building commissioner is that if he is going to get this structure permitted or even have a chance getting this structure permitted, that if he has an accessory structure, accessory apartment or anything on the home itself, that has to go away. So that's really the building commissioner's issue that we have to deal with. Not really a Concom issue, and he is aware of that, so that's something he has to work out.
Would that impact what you said, the pump chamber? I mean, what was it? What part of the septic system did you mention was the tank, right?
Well, if this septic system has a total of 4 bedrooms going into it with the proposed project, if he will only be allowed 3 bedrooms on the main home site. And down below, he'd be allowed the additional bedroom. He can only have 4 bedrooms going in that current system as configured.
Okay.
It has capacity. Now, whether or not the Board of Health wants to have it inspected, that's up to their purview, and that certainly can be accomplished. And you can see he does have room for expansion if that does have to happen down the road.
Yeah, understood. Do you have any other comments to? No, sorry. Just going over some of my other comments on this, the proposed garage is in the outer riparian zone to riverfront with a 100 to 200 foot setback. And over existing driveway. Just go back to the photos here just to show. So roughly in this
Correct.
area
Yeah.
here. So
Correct.
It's mostly in the driveway footprint, just showing you here on the upper right image, you can kind of see the spray paint marks delineating where the garage is going. So it's all pre-disturbed area within the driveway layout. And then as mitigation to provide enhanced buffer in these crosshatched areas to the BBW and riverfront area. So overall, I think it meets the performance standards for riverfront. The only thing that was missing, as I said, is just that we need a revised narrative going over the alternatives analysis. And I think that, you know, I can envision an alternatives analysis that would propose the same proposal without any changes. So it's more of a formality than anything. But something that we would require prior to issuance. So rather than, I know it originally recommended a continuance, it's your discretion of the commission to decide if you want to approve pending, you know, conversation with the building department to get that issue kind of hashed out, and you know, just close an issue pending that. I think, and then receipt of an alternatives analysis, revised narrative.
And the new plan that you have in front of you, you can see we're not going anywhere towards the resource area with that. So our goal is to put the driveway in the existing gravel drive disturbed area, and we wouldn't have to alter any natural vegetation, override any mitigation if, that I can see would be needed, and I leave that up to the commission, but we're not doing any work down over in that area. It's already disturbed.
Right, okay. No other comments?
Questions and comments from our commissioners?
So what were the conditions again, Drew? Just pending the building department review?
Building department review and receipt of revised narrative for alternatives analysis for riverfront.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Steve, go ahead.
Okay, so based on the recommendations and the questions still outstanding, I would probably move for a continuance versus approval on this pending all the information. Seems like there's 3 items, and that would be my inclination.
Other comments?
What's the third item?
Yeah, but you said there were 3 items, Steve. I only noted 2 in my.
But you said the alterations for the alternative, the alternative analysis for the alterations, revise the plan instead of the hand-drawn plan, and then the building inspector issue.
I think it was the hand-drawn was just highlighting revisions that were already made. So that was my misunderstanding on that. But
Oh, yeah, that hand-drawn plan depicted where the old location, Mr. Cook, where the garage was, and we slid the garage further away from the resource area. So we have a
so the
formal
plan-
stamp plan.
So, yeah, I saw the plan that came in today that has a hand-drawn on it. So the plan that was submitted, that was sent to us previously, is that still current?
The plan that you have, the current plan that is before the board for approval is dated June 20th. It has a garage, the plan that you see on the screen right now being shared is the original submitted plan. It's not the current plan. The current plan that we
That's
draw.
the one that's dated June 6th then, right?
No.
So,
It's
yeah,
June,
it's dated June 20th.
June 20th.
Yeah.
okay, June 12th, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we have a narrative, and we know that that's going to be, that's a fairly common thing that we could address. And on behalf of the client, he still has to work out those issues with the building commissioner, which regardless of what happens, that's not really going to change the location of the garage and what he does with the garage. That's going to really be a zoning issue.
Sure.
It's not really anything for Concom, with all due respect.
Other questions and comments from our commissioners? Hearing none, is there anyone who's called in or sitting in the audience to make commentary on this hearing?
Nobody's called in, and no public audience commentary.
In that case, we'll entertain a motion. This is an NOI.
I move to close an issue for Eric Walker at 452 Nathan Ellis Highway with the conditions pending building department review and the alternative analysis for riverfront.
Thank you, Brian. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. Voting. Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for having me, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is next to continue? Do we have the dates? No, we'll address them when I open the hearing. Now calling the 6:33 hearing for the town of Mashpee, Little River and Great River, proposed improvement dredging. Representative is BSC Group. This is an NOI. The request has been made to postpone this hearing, and that date would be 7/14 at 6:03.
I move we continue the hearing for the town of Mashpee, Little River, Great River to July 14th, 2022 at 6:03 p.m.
Thank you, Brian. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. Voting. Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Now calling the 6:36 hearing for Lawrence J. and Judith Pelletier, trustees, Pelletier Family Trust, 37 Fiddler Crab Lane, proposed after-the-fact permitting of wooden walkway. Representative is BSS Design Incorporated. This is an NOI.
And this has been requested by the applicant to be continued to July 14th at the request of the Commission, Conservation Department, for lack of a DEP number, July 14th at 6:12 p.m.
If there's no further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to continue to July 14th at 6 p.m.
6:12.
At 6:12 p.m. Do we hear a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. Voting. Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Go to the pre-post agenda. I appreciate
Take it
everybody's
away,
patience.
sir.
It's my fault for taking a vacation if this meeting is so long.
It's okay.
How dare you? So selfish.
Drew, I have to head out, so good job tonight, and I'll see you at the next hearing, so.
Okay.
Is there anything we have
Yeah,
to-
Aaron's still on.
Do you mind if we just do a quick something while you're here, Steve? We've got just one thing to vote on. Everything else is an update.
Okay.
Yeah, just real quick. I just need, like to get a vote of endorsement. The commission, the Conservation Department was interested in purchasing the property at 751 Main Street, AKA Route 130, using CPA funds. It's an 8-acre parcel of undeveloped privately owned land that directly abuts the Pickerel Cove Conservation Land. So as part of any land acquisition process using CPA funds, we would like to get a vote of endorsement to acquire this 8-acre parcel that directly abuts existing conservation land. It's 751 Main Street. So if I could get a motion and a vote of endorsement, would be greatly appreciated.
Is there any discussion amongst our commissioners?
Where was this parcel again, Drew?
So this is 751 Main Street, so when you're going down Route 130 heading towards Sandwich.
Yeah.
Just before the runway easement for the Air National Guard base is Pickerel Cove Conservation Land. Just before that is this 8-acre parcel. There's a
Okay.
couple of parcels being developed, and then it's open space, undeveloped land before you hit Pickerel Cove.
Yeah, I don't, okay.
If there's no further discussion, I would like to motion to approve or endorse to the town, or the Conservation Commission to acquire 751 Main Street under the Community Preservation Act.
Second.
I think Brian got that one. Thank you, Brian. Now voting. Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Good work, Drew.
Okay, Steve, you're out of here.
Great. Thank you very much. Take care,
Dismissed.
everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
So for the next agenda item, approval of minutes, I did not have time to review those sets of minutes, so I'll have them all prepared and sent out for review prior to July 14th. And then we go into the updates, Red Brick Road culvert. So the towns are currently just coordinating to replace the sandbags to block up the water supply, in the abandoned bog. And then within the next week or so, we should be receiving the conceptual study from Horsley Witten Group about their recommendations about what to do with the failed culvert and that bog, that flooded bog situation moving forward. I mean, currently right now, if you drive by there, it looks like something that has already just completed restoration several years ago, and looks like what you'd want it to look like as far as the system that once was there, the stream and associated wetlands. But it was, part of this conversation with the abutters in this situation was an assurance that the sandbags would be replaced and the bog would be flooded until such time as this comes to the next step in review. And first and foremost is the safety of the road and the culvert. So we'll await the feedback from Horsley Witten on that and proceed to the next steps. So it's going to involve, more conversation, hopefully understanding from the abutters about what would make the most sense out there environmentally speaking. Any questions on that?
It's too bad. I mean, it doesn't look like we have to do a lot of restoration there.
It doesn't. It looks like it's already been completed. But we did provide that assurance, and we haven't had an extended conversation on that. So maybe I'll attend another association meeting. Upper Quashnet Restoration, and so I did inform Horsley Witten of the Commission's vote to endorse that full restoration scenario number 3 of the Upper Quashnet River and associated cranberry bogs, doing wetland restoration as well as river realignment. I'll be meeting with Neil Price to kind of go over that scenario and fine tune it because there were some elements that really weren't necessary. And we'll come back and update the commission on that conversation and what the final approach design will look like conceptually at this stage. So it's good to see that, because by doing this, by designating a chosen path towards restoration, now you really are opening up the door to other forms of funding. So I'm glad we got past that stage. It's a big hurdle to get through.
Nice work.
And have a path forward. So. Bylaw Review Subcommittee, we're still ongoing with review of Regulation 30, prevention of pollution. And I didn't see it on the upcoming Selectmen's meeting agenda. And I don't know what happens. I can only, Chief is on, the town manager's on vacation this week, so I don't really have anyone to follow up on with it. But I'll continue to talk to Terry.
They can amend their agenda,
Yes,
right?
Yeah,
Up to 48 hours before?
I believe so, yeah. So I think that would probably be the best thing to do, is have request an amendment to the agenda. I can do that.
Right, and if they don't, I would suggest that we go as a commission and under public comment, ask why.
Right.
It's been voted and proved and.
Agreed.
Johns Pond and Santua Pond surveying for milfoil, so the surveying has been done. We're just awaiting the results, which should come in the next day or two from for the contractors, Wetland and Waterways, Wetland and Water, LLC. So it'll be interesting to see the surveying results. Hopefully nothing on Johns Pond, and I'm assuming something on Santuit based on observations last year. Choptake update, continuation of phase 2 planning and permitting. Recently, one of the criteria is to find a what they call a wetland reference site, which is trying to find a wetland within the vicinity of Choptake or in the town to get an idea of what this wetland restoration will look like. So you go out and find a reference site as part of the process, and we were able to find a site. Originally, I took them out to Noisy Hole because of the wetland there. We discovered some burrow pits around the area, and so they want to find a reference wetland that's a natural wetland and not one that was altered and once a cranberry bog. So Triangle Pond and Sandwich, we found a wetland out there that based on suggestion from the State Division of Ecological Restoration, was a good reference site. And it was just, took a lot of bushwhacking, and I pulled about 15 ticks off me after that excavation. So. But we found it. So.
Nice. Well worth it, right?
Let's just say the trail was half there and half not. And last thing is the local comprehensive plan, and recently the public scoping for the natural resources component was completed. And I thought it was a really good process at the Mashpee Public Library. A lot of good ideas exchanged and suggestions. And one of the things that kind of stood out to me, and I know, Paul, you probably realize this too, is that some of the suggestions are things that are already in place, like an online trail map. Some of these things, so I think it just tells us that we need to make more effort to get the word out about these sources of information to the public, and so that people are just aware that these things that they put on a wish list are actually already existing and should be taken advantage of. So, other than that, I thought it was a really productive day.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that when all is said and done, that the LCP will have action items and timelines, because there's a lot of things from 1998 that they're still haunting us.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of hopeful that they do, but I don't know. I don't know how they're going to address it.
Right. I've been working with Evan to try and fill in the gaps in some of those issues, like from some of the goals of the previous LCP, and letting him know for whatever reason or another why it either fell off the radar or wasn't pursued ultimately, or what happened. So I am working with Evan on that, so that can help to establish new timelines and
Right.
criteria. So, but he's been in close contact with me.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
All right.
That's too bad.
Oh, yeah. Just one last FYI. Renee, our nature tour guide, has a wonderful opportunity to go out to a national park and do some work, some interpretive work, other opportunities out there. And so there will be no tours for the month of July. So we'll miss that, but we're happy for Renee for this opportunity.
Very good. Any other comments or discussion from our commissioners? Anyone online who has any? You looked like you're about to say something, Paul.
No.
No? Didn't want to cut you off. Anyone online who has any comments to make? In that event, it's been my pleasure to serve as your chairman, and I would like to motion to adjourn.
Before we do that, I want to thank you, Chad, for your leadership. Obviously being in a position like that is a thankless job, and I think that you did your best to represent us and the entire town, and really bringing forward a lot of the issues that we do face around water quality and so on and so forth. So pleasure to work with you, and continue to work with you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate that, and I look forward to serving under you guys as your new role as secretary and yours as chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a second on that adjournment?
Second. Third.
Thank you, Paul. Now voting, Brian.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Steve.
You, Steve, going. This is Charlie.
Charlie.
Yes.
I vote aye as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.